moon in Sagittarius is exciting. It may bring about a sense of celebration or joy or excitement in the collective. It could be more of a positive turning point that we see collectively. Even though on a collective level we are going through it, we are kind of in this like dark space of fear and corruption and power and control issues on the planet and all kinds of dark stuff happening on the planet. But this is one of those full moons that can bring about something more positive and jovial and celebratory and surprising and exciting and an overall like shift in direction, something that kind of exposes a type of change, maybe a positive change or good news in some way. By the way, welcome to Realization Hub. My name is Michelle, and I'm an intuitive counselor, energy healer, channeler, and astrologer. And today I'm doing an energy update for the full moon in Sagittarius happening on May 30th at 10:45 p.m. Hawaii time. And that would be May 31st for a lot of you that live in different time zones. So let's get into this full moon in Sagittarius. Starting with Sagittarius. Sagittarius is a fire mutable sign. It's a very active sign, an energetic sign, an enthusiastic sign that is taking physical action. Sagittarius is known for being optimistic, jovial, humorous, adventurous, freedom loving, and exploratory. Often associated with traveling to faraway lands, exploring different cultures, different philosophies, embracing broad perspectives, embracing ultimate truths. And it can be associated with our beliefs, our dogma, religion, spirituality, seeking a higher purpose, seeking higher meaning, seeking higher goals. And so when we have a full moon in Sagittarius, oftentimes we do have an energy that is more, um, optimistic, or it's a little bit more expansive and broad. We come into a broader perspective, or we come into an expansive kind of perspective, something that expands us, something that helps us grow. Um, we can come into something that's just more fun in general, because Sagittarius is quite the fun energy. And we've got some beautiful um, supportive energy during this full moon. What stands out to me the most as something that's supporting us is that we have these trines with Neptune, Vesta, Pallas Athena, and Saturn all in Aries. And so there's something about this full moon where we as individuals are supported in this full moon. Like our purpose, our wisdom, our knowledge, our strategies, our dreams, they can all go towards really materializing something, really making something real, really making something, building something, or creating structure around something, or, you know, really grounding something. But it can be something very supportive that we've been dreaming of or imagining or trying to create, something that we're kind of passionate about on a soul level, spiritual level, something that we can actually plan and something that we can materialize. Like, this is what's coming through about the most positive thing about this full moon. One of the reasons why I'm pointing out these positive aspects to this full moon is that there is a side to this full moon that is tense or awkward or requiring some adjustments and some change to occur. Now, what's interesting about this full moon is that it is in a square with the nodes. Now, that means that this is a full moon that's between eclipses. Our last series of eclipses were a solar annular eclipse in Aquarius on February 17th earlier this year, and a lunar total eclipse in Virgo on March 3rd earlier this year. Now, the next set of eclipses is going to be happening in August. And basically, what that means is eclipses are really important um, new beginnings and endings. They are shifts in our life story. They align us with fated and destined events that are occurring in our lives. They can be change points in our lives, things that we see coming, things that are natural, but also things that kind of are unseen that occur that force us to realign in a new direction of some kind. And when we have a full moon that is between the eclipses, we see this square here with the nodes. And essentially, what this means about this full moon is there is something that we need to unattach from. There's something that we need to release. There's something we need to let go of in order for us to move forward. So it is like a turning point. It's like we're turning a corner in a story. Something that was possibly challenging, we're starting to turn the corner around that story or event in our lives or experience in our lives. One of the things standing out to me about this full moon here, we've got Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, in Cancer. Now it's exalted in Cancer. Cancer is this nurturing, kind of protective, watery, emotionally kind of sensitive and psychic and healing, energy. And Jupiter is the planet that is bringing us our luck and our abundance and our growth and our opportunities. And we have Jupiter in a square here with Chiron, which objectively, this is positive. Objectively, this is bringing up Chiron's at the 29th degree, which is kind of like a karmic completion point. So there's a pattern, around our identity, around our confidence, around asserting ourselves, around going for our desires, around being brave, like we've got some kind of pattern around this that needs to come to karmic completion. It's about to shift. There's about to be a shift between Chiron in Aries and Chiron going into Taurus. And so this is like highlighting, this full moon is highlighting a pattern with Chiron. And Chiron, the wounded healer, is essentially going to show us our awkwardness, our shame, something that is like a trauma pattern with its square Jupiter in Cancer. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of us are seeing family trauma patterns around our own identity. We're working through ancestral patterns within us. We're working through feminine, masculine patterns within us. But, you can think of this as our wounds, our trauma, those patterns that are debilitating our ability to be who we are, assert ourselves, have confidence to go for what we want and achieve what we want and move through our own obstacles and challenges. That's in a square with Jupiter. Objectively, this is very positive because Jupiter will make it very obvious what our patterns are and can give us the blessings and the abundance and the optimism and the goodness that we need in order to, have the medicine, to heal these patterns. And so this full moon is definitely going to be illuminating something for us, like a pattern, something that is self-sabotaging us. And the way I see that is that we have Lilith here in a conjunction with this full moon. It's a wide conjunction, and Lilith is, essentially where we hold something hidden in our feminine energy, um, where we might be, sabotaging ourselves. We have Lilith in Sagittarius. So you can kind of think of like the shadowy side of Sagittarius or the way Sagittarius might express itself in kind of a low, kind of negative way. And you can think of someone who might be, this is something you can ask yourself, like, what is my higher purpose and my higher goals and the higher meaning that I'm trying to find in life? And am I being reckless as I pursue that? Like, am I doing it too fast? Am I doing it too chaotically? Am I tripping over myself? Am I putting myself at risk? Am I putting other people at risk? Am I tripping over other people in the process? Am I creating chaos in other people's lives in the process? Am I being too risky? Am I taking leaps of faith that are really going to hurt me in the long run? Am I stretching the boundaries too much? Am I going overboard in some way? Um, or you could think of it as someone who's got a very strong dogma, they to the point where they're righteous in their dogma and they become very preachy and righteous and they're making themselves superior to someone else because this is what they believe and this is what's true and this is what's right and and how is that sabotaging you in your connections and your relationships? Is it making people feel small? Is it making um, people feel unheard, unseen, or is it the other way around? Like, are you in a position where you're feeling unheard, unseen? Someone's acting very righteous and superior over you. Um, Lilith is that energy that's going to help us take our power back. It's going to expose, a truth, something that's hidden, something that is kind of hidden in our energy where we need to take our power back, like a trauma, like a pattern, um, and where we're ultimately kind of liberating ourselves from that pattern. Now, we do have Lilith in a trine with Saturn here. And so, something that can support us during this, liberation, is boundaries, making boundaries, or restricting something that needs to be restricted, or committing to something that we haven't committed to before, or taking on more responsibility, or putting in the work. Like, practical wisdom. Like this is the stuff that can really support us as something surfaces, as we see like a pattern that needs to be released. This full moon is going to show us that. The other thing I want to point out about this full moon is that there's something about this full moon that is um, kind of stagnant. I'm like, it's surprisingly emotional and watery, and that's because Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, is in Cancer, a water sign, a very sensitive water sign. And so you can think of someone who's so sensitive psychically, emotionally, if something's too blunt, if something's too harsh, if something's too um direct, that could like hurt our feelings, right? And then we have to lick our wounds and we feel like little, kind of crybabies. There's something I'm noticing about this stagnancy. It's almost like a pattern that we're trying to move away from, like a pattern, a trauma, something that needs to be healed. We're moving away from it. And one thing that stands out to me is like this alchemy or this transmutation that's occurring during this full moon. Earlier in the week from this full moon, around the 25th or 26th, I'm not sure the exact day, we had Pluto in a direct square with Mars. Now, that's a very combustive, agitating, kind of exhausting energy. And we're still in that square during this full moon. The square is easing up. Things are definitely easing up, but we are still feeling the square. And so, one of the things that could occur, especially if you're sensitive to energy, is this past week and moving up to this full moon, and maybe even a little bit a few days after this full moon, there could be some tendencies to be around people that are just angry, or you might feel angry, or there might just be deeper emotions, that are surfacing, really challenging emotions. And what I'm seeing about this is that there's something stagnant. There's something stagnant that is going through a dissolving process on a spiritual level, on an energetic level within us. We're dissolving it. We're embracing a broader perspective that helps us dissolve it. And we have to work through some challenges. something that maybe is pissing us off or bringing up some rage, or, maybe other people are pissed off. But it is about embracing a form of change, or a form of letting go of our attachments, or recognizing what really sustains us, what really nurtures us, and what we're passionate about, what makes us alive. And some of this, there could be like suppressed anger coming up to the surface. There could be stuff around our self-worth coming up to the surface. There could be anger issues coming up to the surface. But basically, what this reminds me of is is kind of like that point in the Beauty and the Beast in that story where like the beast, the beast became a beast because he got into an entanglement kind of with a witchy woman, and she put a curse on him and he became the beast. And then his castle turned into this dark, cold place. And everyone that worked for him that was lively and innocent and lovely, they all kind of transformed into these objects, like the candlestick and the teapot and the table and the couch and all those things. And at some point in the story, Belle comes into the story. There's this attempt of connection and love, and the beast is just not capable of receiving love or being tender or vulnerable. There's these anger issues, and then by the end of the story, the curse gets lifted. And the beast goes through a transfiguration, and he turns from the beast into a human man. And he is now more vulnerable, receptive to love. He can give and receive love. The castle transforms back to its kind of beautiful state. All the objects come alive into real people, and it's more lively, it's more connected. Like there's more, yeah, like connection amongst all the people in the story. Things return back to like a natural state. And so I really see this kind of being one of those full moons where there's a pattern, there's something that's stagnant, there's something that we need to let go of, there's something deep, there's something about our masculine energy that needs to kind of alchemize or go through a healing process, and we're bringing it to kind of like a more expanded state of consciousness, or we're bringing it to more of an expanded or higher state of expression. We're kind of taking it from this instinctual, mad, angry, tough, armored, kind of blocking our own love, blocking our own opportunities, blocking our own growth, and we're changing it and we're bringing it into something that's more natural, more free, more open, more liberated, more alive, more connected, more open to giving and receiving love in those relationships. So surprisingly, there's a lot of that healing that's occurring in the background of this full moon, while kind of like in the foreground of this full moon, it's like we come into a perspective. We come into like a spiritual perspective, or like a creative perspective, or we expand on like a dream that we have, or we get some kind of insight, from a dream that we have, or some kind of perspective that comes in. And that's what allows us to maybe drop or let go of something and move forward in some way. We do have this full moon opposing Uranus. Uranus is now firmly in Gemini, for the next 7 or 8 years. And it's in a trine with Pluto, and it's also in a square with those nodes, and it's in a sextile with Neptune. And so, yeah, this is like a transformative um, shift that's occurring, a transformative change that's occurring, a pivot away from something old towards something new that we need to align with or develop. And by letting go of that old stuff, we liberate ourselves so that we're available for the new stuff. But we might be a little attached to whatever is coming up to release at this time. We might be attached to it. It might feel like if we let it go that we're just going to die, but really it holds a lot of potential around transformation. And And really, when it comes down to it, it's about what sustains us and what is not sustaining us. Um, when I'm looking at this full moon and how to approach this practically, some practical wisdom that's coming through around this full moon. Well, the first thing that's coming through is, has there been something that has been angering you this week, leading up to the full moon? Something frustrating, something pissing you off? Have you experienced some form of rage? Um, have you experienced a pattern that's kind of underneath the surface that feels wounded or makes you feel like you have a low sense of self-worth? That's what you need to work with around this full moon. That's kind of like the shadow work that's underneath the surface, that's trying to surface, trying to be liberated, trying to take your power back from it. And it is about embracing a form of self-talk at the very least, or talk with others that's more forgiving, more compassionate, more empathetic. Um, you know, instead of, tendencies towards hiding the truth, hiding what you think, blurring the lines, a lack of clarity, fogginess. It's more about compassion, forgiveness, surrender, and empathy, and the medicine that you need for healing that you can be thinking about or using in your conversations with others, or um, maybe possibly receiving communication from someone else that's very healing for you, that helps you trust, that helps you move forward in some way. So be prepared for some level of shadow work. Be prepared for some level of release of what needs to be let go of in order to move forward, like a turning point in your own story, like sometime from February and March till now, like you're at some kind of turning point. And what is the wisdom that you can bring to this turning point? What is a strategy? What can you plan wisely? How can you create something? How can you create something practical? How can you celebrate something very tangible coming to fruition at this time? These are some of the ways that you can support yourself during the full moon. And this full moon does bring about change, the topic of change, things that are changing. It reminds me of one of those moments where maybe you were at a choice point. Maybe you were making a choice, or maybe you were feeling something that's about to change or is going to change, or maybe something is changing and it's outside of your control. But this is kind of one of those moments, it's like you get that broader perspective and it helps you align with the direction that you need to go in. And so be attuned to that. Be attuned to the perspective that comes into your awareness over the weekend, and how that informs you around your own instincts and your own actions that you can take that kind of help you align in a new direction or into a new development, or into more compassion or intuition, or aligning more with your dreams. All right, everyone, it was so good to spend some time with you. If you're interested in booking a session with me, you can find more information in the description box below. And as usual, I have very affordable group sessions each month regarding the energies each month. I choose topics based on the energies each month. You can sit back, receive a healing. You can be guided through a very potent meditative journey. Um, or you can sit back and receive a transmission that brings more activations and healing and embodiment of your own divinity. So if you're ever interested in those topics, those offerings, you can join me in the group sessions, or you're more than welcome to book a free consultation if you want to explore some of the personal sessions that I offer at this time as well. Okay. If you're listening to this on YouTube, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, write me a comment, let me know how you're doing, what's resonating with you. Give me a psychic hug. If you are listening to this on Spotify, please rate the podcast, write me a comment, subscribe to the channel. That helps me out a lot. And I really hope you have a wonderful, jovial, positive, optimistic full moon in Sagittarius. Okay, bye everyone.